A stranger opens his hand. In his palm is a small piece of silver stamped with a face he may never meet. The metal cannot shelter anyone. It cannot heal a wound or pull a net from the sea. Yet another stranger looks at it and changes his behavior. Food moves across the counter. A debt is countered. A journey becomes possible. The miracle is not the silver. The miracle is the trust. Money begins where ordinary trust runs out. Inside a family, people can remember favors. Inside a village, reputation can do much of the work. But strangers meet at ports and on roads. They meet beside army camps. In those places, memory is too small. The seller does not know whether the buyer is honest. The buyer does not know whether the seller will still be here tomorrow. Both need something that can carry trust between people who do not know one another. That is what money does. It turns value into a portable agreement. The agreement does not have to be a coin. It can be shells. It can be weighed silver. It can be barley, bank numbers, or cigarettes traded behind barbed wire. The object changes. The social trick stays the same. Enough people must believe that other people will accept it later. Once that belief exists, almost anything can become money. Once it disappears, even gold can become only metal. This is why money is one of the strangest stories humans ever made. It is practical because it is imaginary. It is powerful because it does not ask for love. A merchant can distrust your God and still trust your coin. A soldier can despise your language and still count your silver. A ruler can tax a village he has never seen because the harvest can be translated into numbers. Money makes the world easier to connect. It also makes the world easier to reach. Before money, exchange could be thick with relationship. A favor had a face. A debt had a story. A field and a goat did not naturally belong on the same scale. Neither did a pot and a day of labor. Money makes comparison easier. That is useful. It is also dangerous. Once everything can be priced, very different things pass through the same narrow gate. A sack of grain can become an amount. So can a family heirloom. So can a soldier's pay, a fine, or a stolen field. The system does not ask whether those things should belong in the same scale. It asks whether they can be counted. That is money's double nature. It lets strangers cooperate without becoming kin. It lets distant markets feed cities. It lets it travel across borders with value in a pocket. But it also thins the world. It can turn obligation into debt. It can turn land into revenue. It can turn people into labor units and conquest into accounting. That is where the coin begins to look like a road into empire. An empire does not merely rule a large territory. It rules many peoples and keeps imagining more peoples as possible subjects. It does not see difference as a reason to stop. It sees difference as something to tax and govern. It sees difference as something to translate, absorb, or correct. Empires rarely describe themselves as machines for taking. They prefer a better story. They say they bring order to chaos. They say they bring peace after war. They promise law and roads. They promise culture, salvation, civilization, or progress. Sometimes they really do build roads. Sometimes they really do stop local wars. Sometimes a conquered child grows up speaking the imperial language and uses it to enter a larger world. That is part of the trap. The empire harms and connects at the same time. The Roman world is still visible in languages and law. It survives in roads, cities, calendars, and political imagination. Yet Rome did not spread by invitation. It spread through siege and tribute. It spread through slavery, settlement, and the long training of defeated peoples to see Roman order as the horizon of ambition. Numantia resisted Rome until hunger and destruction turned a city into a warning. Later, people far from the old Roman center could inherit Roman names. They could inherit Roman law and Roman pride. The conquered could become the heirs. This does not erase the violence. It shows how deeply empire rewrites memory. The same pattern appears in other forms. An imperial capital takes taxes from many languages. It sends officials and soldiers. It sends weights, maps, and legal categories. It collects local knowledge and sends back commands. Money helps this happen because money translates difference into revenue. A village can keep its songs. A province can keep its food. But the center can reach farther once land can be counted. It can reach farther once labor, tribute, and punishment can be counted in a form the center accepts. Imperial rule gives money roads. Money gives imperial rule a bloodstream. Together they make strangers legible to power. That does not mean people inside empires are only victims or servants. They adapt. They bargain. They join armies, learn languages, use courts, and move through roads. Sometimes they turn imperial promises against imperial rulers. If an empire claims to bring justice, its subjects can ask for justice. If it claims universal law, they can demand to stand inside that law. If it claims civilization, they can expose the brutality done in civilization's name. This is why the moral story refuses to stay simple. Empires destroy worlds. They also leave tools that later worlds cannot easily abandon. The alphabet of resistance may come from the school of conquest. The legal petition may use the ruler's language. The anti-imperial flag may fly above roads, borders, and capitals first hammered into place by empire. No clean hand can lift history out of this mixture. The question is not whether empire was secretly good. The question is why its damage can remain useful after the conqueror is gone. Money has the same afterlife. A coin can pass through honest trade and wages. It can pass through bribes, taxes, ransom, and tribute without changing shape. It remembers none of them. That amnesia is part of its power. People can use the same currency to buy bread. They can use it to fund a school. They can use it to hire soldiers or strip a forest. The money does not blush, it only moves. By now the two systems have trained each other for centuries. Money imagines everyone as a possible partner in exchange. Empire imagines everyone as a possible subject of rule. Each one stretches human trust beyond the village. Each one can make distant lives matter to one another. But mattering is not the same as being protected. To be priced is not to be respected. To be governed is not to be heard. The world that emerges is connected but not innocent. At the edge of the market, the stranger still holds out the coin. Behind it stand mines and mints. Behind it stand ledgers and ships. Behind it stand laws, armies, tax offices, and promises about order. The other hand reaches forward. For 1 second, the whole system balances on a small act of belief. Then the coin changes hands, and the empire has already entered the room.